The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Speaking of Monero price, I was able to purchase 4 Third Reality Zigbee smart home plugs that I can run with Home Assistant, and it cost me I think it was 147 Monero this week.
You bought, hang on, you bought what again?
I bought 4 Third Reality smart home plugs that are Zigbee, so that I can run them on my Home Assistant local instance and control my outlets and stuff like that.
What does that entail, controlling your outlets, smartly controlling your outlets?
So I can have like eventually what I plan on doing is getting one of those temperature sensors so that I can say if the temperature drops below this level, turn on the heater. If it rises above this level, turn off the heater. If it rises above this level, turn on the air conditioner. If it drops below this level, turn off the air conditioner, that kind of thing.
And by heater, I assume you mean your Monero miners?
Yes. Well, I wish. I have those running all the time anyway, except during the summer.
All right. That sounds cool.
But it all has to be local and self-hosted and open source, of course. So
yeah, I was gonna say it's not spying on you, is it?
No, it's not. I'm running Home Assistant, and so it's only communicating with my local Raspberry Pi here.
I mean, obviously they're already spying on everyone just based on just based on the way that you change the mains. All of that frequency is resolvable because every time you turn something on or off, it's a certain specific load. It has specific signatures. And they're probably monitoring a lot more of that than we realize. Or
at least doubt it.
Probably at least recording that data, whether or not they're actually analyzing it after the fact. They care about us so little, man. They don't even give us our own Fed agents anymore. They just give us fucking bots to analyze all our data. Go back to the days when we had our own Fed agents.
Yeah, you're too much of a pleb. You're not worth a human's time. So we'll just put a bot on analyzing all of your electricity usage to tell when you're showering with your girlfriend or whatever.
System D Lover tipped 0.001 XMR. Hello. Should there be a live stream on Rumble? If so, it doesn't seem to work. Yeah, there should be, and it's not working right now. I don't know why it's not working. It's showing that it's disconnected. Apologies for that, but thank you for the heads up.
Maybe man, I thought that I convinced System D Lover to stop loving System D, but I guess my explanation wasn't good enough. He hasn't changed his name. No, I'm just playing, bro.
Yeah, so buddy, I guess take it away on price. We'll keep things moving, and we'll bring up the special guest. Be great if you could stick around for that as well. I don't know if you've been following the Simple X drama at all.
Yeah, I've been watching it. I haven't been able to really come to an opinion on it. I don't know. I don't want to rush to be like everything has to be Monero, but if you can sell gift cards for Monero, then couldn't you sell Simple X gift cards for Monero? I don't know. Well, we'll hear what the Simple X guys have to say, and maybe some of the challenges that come up. Hopefully, some smarter people than myself ask some smart questions.
Exactly. All right, man. Take it away on price. I think another big week for privacy coins, I would say. There's been a lot of action.
I guess so.
Dash is now a part of the privacy coin pump.
I had no idea. I don't think they knew. I don't think they knew it either. They were like, "We're not a privacy coin."
I feel like they're throwing Decred out there as a privacy coin too.
Like Schrodinger's privacy coin. They're a privacy coin when it suits them, but not when Binance wants to delist them.
Interesting. But yeah, go ahead. Take it away, man.
Cool. Are the charts on screen?
I
should be screen sharing.
Yes, you're there. Boop, and I'll make it full screen for you.
Thank you. All right. So, we're looking here at the Monero price, and we've had reasonably good price action this past week. if it weren't for a particular other coin which shall not be named yet, we would be saying, hey, we're actually doing quite good. If you compare to what's happening with the rest of crypto, Bitcoin had another little whoopsie daisy, kind of flirting with that 99 level again. And, everyone's got 99 problems, and Bitcoin is 99 of them in this case, apparently. Unless you hold shitcoins, in which case you probably have about 9,999 problems. But as far as Monero goes, everything looks pretty good actually. Like we said, this was a positive. This is a positive chart pattern, on the short term. What the hell? God damn it! I hate these guys, dude. Was fucking scumbags. They do this from time to time. How are you using our services? Are you a professional? Yes, everything I do is fucking professional. Now give me access to my charts. Stupid assholes. All right. Back to the price report. Sorry about that, guys. And I just loaded these charts this morning too. They had to do it like right now. Like I reloaded everything this morning. All right. Anyways. Okay. So we were talking about XMR price. We're saying, hey, we had kind of identified that this structure was actually reasonably bullish. Let's see where we're at here we're on 1108. So yeah, last time we talked was 1101. Yeah, so right around here, we were talking. We were talking last week right around here, and we were saying, yep, this is looking like nice action. The next move to expect is up for Monero, even though the rest of crypto is kind of like not not really looking that great. And so yeah, we got some positive price action. I guess you could wrap Monero into the whole privacy coin, whatever narrative, but I think those narratives in a lot of cases are just backfilled, right, to explain the thing that was already going to happen. So, I mean, Monero already had very positive price action, and our price action in a lot of ways does seem, I won't call it decoupled, but somewhat decoupled from the rest of crypto, right? Monero has certain things that appear reasonably decoupled from how the rest of crypto tends to act. So yeah, basically we've broken out. I know I drew these lines slightly different last week, whatever, again, pleb lines are pleb lines. But we could probably draw something like that if we're trying to talk about pleb lines. But in reality, at this point, I kind of expect Monero to be shooting for this this purple band up here. And then hopefully we can get above, this sort of rising pleb line here and, into this kind of channel. And then by the time that happens, so the way that the purple lines behave, they're kind of acceleration. They act like an acceleration metric. They'll start curving up, right? And then you kind of want to ride those. Ideally, we want to start riding those up towards the 500 level. And that would be pretty reasonable action to expect to hope for through the end of the year, right? We could potentially continue seeing positive price action for Monero through December and on into January. And personally, I would much rather see Monero continue making these nice steady gains as opposed to just shooting for the moon all of a sudden, because when you establish supports on the way up, you respect them on the way down. Pullbacks respect supports that have been well established. They tend to and again, it's like there is kind of a move, like there is now more attention on privacy coins. A lot of the events of the past couple years have put a lot more attention on privacy and cryptocurrency. And Zcash, for all their retardation, they are kind of shining a light on privacy. For them it's privacy exclam trademark, but there is probably some spillover that happens into Monero, because anyone that's hearing privacy, they start investigating and they're like, well, this Monero coin's actually pretty good, despite the lies that Mert likes to promulgate on
Speaking of Zcash, did you notice that apparently Binance, if you send shielded Zcash that has ever been shielded to them, they will automatically seize it or freeze it or whatever and reject it?
I am Jack's complete lack of surprise. It's the same with Gemini. Someone the other day was like, yeah, but Gemini accepts Zcash. I'm like, no, they accept Tcash. just like Spirobel said, there is no Zcash on exchanges. It's all Tcash. It's like, yeah, but you can directly deposit from your Zcash into the Tcash address. Like, okay, but exchanges don't have Zcash. They have Tcash. That's it.
And
So,
if you do take your Zcash out of the shielded pool and put it back in Tcash and send it to an exchange, they're still likely to deny it because it came out of a shielded pool at some point.
I guess supposedly Gemini isn't like that, bro. That's what they want us to believe.
That's what Binance is doing, though, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, they're U.S. government controlled now. I mean, they kind of always were, but they were like hidden agenda, deep state types of control, plus the golden age of fraud kind of stuff. And now they're like more officially front-facing government regulated, as opposed to the hidden agenda, deep state type of control. I know that sounds crazy, but Jesus, that's just how the world works. So conspiratorial, but fuck. All right. Anyways, yeah. So Monero price looking nice here. I'm enjoying this. I'm a Monero price enjoyer. I guess we can continue to expect some positive, movement here for Monero. That would make sense. Like again, I would hope. I'm not totally predicting it, but I would hope the next movement would be to beat this line and just go straight to the 400 area. Right. So currently sitting at 357. I would hope to go straight to that 400 area and then establish support somewhere around like 370, 380, right? And then start riding this channel higher. Does that actually happen? I don't know, right? But that would be like an ideal. That would be a nice ideal basic chart pattern that would signal continued gains.
By the way, perfect body, saying beating this line and going straight to the 400, that makes it super easy for those of us who are listening on audio or blind. That's perfect.
It's no problem, man. But I'm telling you, like pictures, I know, I mean, sorry, I'm not trying to be a hater. Picture's worth 1,000 words. Like these lines that I'm showing, like they're like informationally dense. There's a lot of information here in these lines, to the point that I really need to train an AI to fucking analyze this, because there's a lot of signal in here that human eyeballs can't see all the time. So I do that when I can. I try to remember to do that when I can, but realistically, like if you're listening on the radio, you're not going to get what you would otherwise get out of this price report unless you're watching it. Like, okay, you can hear my predictions, like, okay, well, Body thinks price is going to do X, Y, and Z, but my goal here is to give you guys the tools that you need to analyze price for yourself, more or less, right? To give you like the ideas that you need to like we started, for a long time is very centered on the macro. At the moment, macro is boring, and that's actually good for price typically. All right. Anyways, onward we go. XMR BTC currently sitting at about 0.003. So yeah, we've beaten the lower standard deviation lines now. We poked our head above it. Typically, when you do this twice like this, especially in quick succession after a dramatic breakdown, in this case, we're talking about breakdown starting pre-2024, right? So like the end of 2023. So this has been a long breakdown. And this is a very nice chart pattern. This is stability. This doesn't necessarily say that the ratio has to go higher. We're not necessarily, like this chart doesn't necessarily say that, but it does give you the feel good, the optimism on that. We've now 1, 2, 3 times come against the upper blue bands here. And now once again, we're poking above the orange bands. So hypothetically, in a bad case scenario, this thing could do one more fall like to this area, right? And then come back up and then start going, or it could just keep going right now. And that obviously that's my preferred scenario, and I think that's the more likely scenario for Monero here over the coming weeks and months. If not immediately Monero versus Bitcoin, if not immediately launching higher to maybe like have some kind of support, maybe it goes slightly higher, retouches this vertical resistance, comes down, and then goes something like that, right? Like that would be a very reasonable thing to happen. That's the more likely thing to happen, to do some kind of floor setting on the ratio and then to start moving higher. Incidentally, that kind of would indicate a potential hiatus to the bull market, at best hiatus, or maybe, shit, guys, maybe that October 10th date or whatever it was, the cycles, the exact number of days from the bottom, maybe that was the signal and we all just didn't believe it because it seemed too obvious. But anyways, yeah, things looking good here overall in the Monero price. The dominance obviously is going to look very similar, and you can see here, dominance already is like kind of starting to break out. I wouldn't believe this entirely. We're kind of hitting this zone of resistance right here on the dominance at 0.22%, 0.20. percent. And also, this would be the first time that price is trying to get above a new shorter term set of standard deviation bands. So this has gotten above them. It's not quite out of hand yet, but typically you don't just smash through unless you're like the stock market. So with the dominance here, it looks slightly different than the XMR versus BTC chart. Maybe there's a little bit more consolidation that has to happen there. I don't know. We're really like just arguing about how many angels are dancing on the head of a needle over here. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing there on those charts. Very, very like nuanced stuff. Don't take too much of that like too far. Okay, let's look at the divergences to Kraken. Nothing looking crazy here, except for Polo is always schizophrenic, but everyone else is pretty close on that 0 point. Maybe the past few days they've been slightly above Kraken's price. That would kind of make sense. We tend to see that when Monero is positive. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the privacy altcoins. Everyone wants to hear about Zcash. We'll just start with them. You can see that my tools, my Wave Magic is not exactly useful on the daily timeframes. This thing smashed up. It looks like it smashed up yesterday all the way to 741. Now currently pulled back to 522. Listen, bros, I probably those of you making these kinds of posts aren't even listening right now. But if you are, stop saying stupid shit like, oh, it's over and everyone's dumping Zcash now. You've said that like 4 fucking times now. Like you said that at 300 and then it pulled back to like 200 and you're like, oh, it's over. Everyone's selling. And it's like, well, no, then they like, that's just how charts with massive volatility behave. That's just how a chart that's going parabolic, double parabolic behaves. It goes up by insane amounts. It pulls back 50% and then it goes up by insane amounts, again. So like there was a whole bunch of people at like 400 or maybe it was 500. And then there was like a dip, maybe not a whole bunch, but there was there were Monero bros out there being like, oh, that's it. It's over. The Zcash pump is over. It's falling now. And everyone's selling. The scam is done and pack it in. They said it again at like, I saw another one yesterday or maybe it was 2 days ago. And it's like, just stop. Like that doesn't help your credibility. It just says that you don't understand how double parabolic markets work. You don't understand how these massive pump and dumps work. This thing can go high as it needs to wreck the shorts. Do not get short Zcash unless you are no shit a market genius and you understand this shit at a very deep level. Do not short Zcash. You will lose all your money. Okay. I don't know how high this thing is going, but it can easily go higher. So like just, I know there's a little bit of exasperation there, guys, but I'm just like, why? God damn it, guys. I already did this. Sorry for those listening. Stupid Trading View just has to. I have a whole bunch of tabs loaded and it doesn't, the other tabs don't know that I just re-verified whatever. Let's see if this is going to be degenerate again. Please don't be retarded. All right, it looks like it's not going to be retarded. Okay. Yeah, so I know a little bit of exasperation there. It's just that like, it doesn't help you or Monero to sit there and be like, that's it, it's over, Zcash. Like all it does is end up contributing when the real crash does happen and all of the influencers come out of nowhere, or all the influencers come out and they're like, oh, you guys have called, this is the 5th time you've called the end of the pump. And this time it actually is the end of the pump. And then they just point to all your other tweets and be like, look, you don't know what you're talking about. This isn't the end of the pump. And meanwhile, it is the end of the pump. And they convince all the plebs that are listening to them, which I'm not convinced is actually all that much. So there's kind of a thing. Let's stop and talk here a little bit. So we're on the 2 hour here on Zcash, and you can actually see on shorter timelines, Wave Magic has been fairly useful to help us identify when topping points may have happened. This entire sort of riding this blue band up is actually like, you would look at that and say, nah, don't short any of that on like just a Wave Magic technical analysis standpoint. And again, hitting this purple band up there, that's exactly a spot you would expect to get some resistance. And so there's a pullback. So, like if you have some special tools to analyze stuff like this, then okay, you might be able to short this. It's still incredibly dangerous. Don't go buck ass wild doing it. But if you don't really know what you're doing, do not short Zcash, please, guys. You're just going to lose your money, and it's going to go to the Zcash guys, right? They're just going to take your money and buy more Zcash with it, right? They're going to use that. They're going to wreck the shorts and then that'll pump the longs. So, I know everyone's kind of pissed about it, but you just got to let this thing play out. And as far like I said early on, this seems like this seems like they could probably continue this for some period of time. It appears like this sort of, they know that Monero has full chain membership proofs coming. They've probably been saving this pump and keeping it in their back pocket for a long time, right, to try and distract attention from Monero. I'm not entirely convinced, to be honest, that so it looks like there are Solana influencers. In fact, it looks like there are a lot of Solana influencers involved with this whole Zcash pump. Like, and that makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because who has the most botted AstroTurf fucking AI leveraged LLM social fabric? It's the Solana meme coin guys, right? Obviously, these are like all of the meme coin shit went into Solana. That's like the premier platform for all that degeneracy. And what do? They got their Telegram groups and they've got all their bots and their LLMs, and they fake, they fake all the plebs adopting, and they've got their influencers, and these guys are probably hand selected, or they're probably chosen, right? Maybe some of it's organic, but I mean, just everything we've seen, like so often, like people that rise to stardom, especially in this kind of golden age of fraud, they're usually like selected or picked, right? They're usually either that, or there's like some kind of background deals working. Anyways, Solana is the fucking coin that is just extremely botted. And that's what we saw. Like, Twitter just exploded in a way that, like, I've almost never seen, except for Charlie Kirk. I have never seen the kind of like bot explosion that came out of nowhere like Zcash did. And Charlie Kirk wasn't even a bot explosion. It was just algorithm promoted. And there was a bunch of bots there too, but it's like 50% bots on Twitter anyways, right? But the point is that, like, the Solana guys are like, have the infrastructure, the knowledge, the know-how, and the wherewithal to do it. And for whatever reason, all these guys pivoted out of Solana, and now they're like, maybe not out of Solana, but they pivoted. There's Solana guys pivoting to Zcash. So I don't know exactly what's going on there. I haven't really thought too deeply about any of that. But actually, I want to credit Techno Revenant, who actually gifted me the blue checkmark on X a few months ago. But I chat with him sometimes, and that was actually an interesting theory that he that he posited, basically that some of the Solana guys are trying to, I don't know, pivot to privacy or something. So anyways, that's kind of an important, like, characterization of what might be happening here and why this thing has legs. I have to believe that there's still some kind of coordination with the cabal that it does intend to suppress Monero, that wants to suppress Monero. And this is just another way of doing it, right? It could backfire in the sense that it's going to shine a spotlight on privacy. So Monero, actually, believe it or not, should be some kind of recipient of this spotlight. That would be my kind of like long-term thinking on this. Anyways, Zcash sitting here at $500 was currently, or was previously yesterday, 750. Don't short this thing, guys. I don't want you guys to get wrecked. Just focus on Monero. Okay. Like, yeah. Counter the stupid things that people are saying on Twitter or whatever, I guess.
If you are going to be degenerate and short it, then do it with like 0.5% of your portfolio.
Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't. Shorting is inherently a leverage activity. So, yeah, you probably shouldn't be trading with more than 0.5%. If you want to be an absolute fucking DJ, and you could put like 5 or 10% onto a trading stack. But when you lose 5, like if you get wiped out at 5 or 10%, you do that a few times, you're going to start hurting, right? And you, like, if you're young, you can sustain that. But, if you're 50, you shouldn't, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to play it safer. All right, let's take a look at the other privacy altcoins. I oscillate every week between calling them shitcoins and altcoins. Xano still looks like it's in this consolidation phase where it's the volatility is compressing, right? Lower highs and higher lows. Eventually, this will break one way or the other, probably whatever direction the crypto market breaks in general. Firo seems to actually be doing pretty good here. I mean, that's after having done quite bad for a long time, but what kind of gains were they getting? That's pretty good. 3x, 3.5x since October. And then Pirate Chain trying to pretend like they're cool like Zcash, but not being cool like Zcash. They had a nice pump from the very, very bottom to the tippity top. They got 7x, which is, that's pretty good. So since about April. What have you done for me lately? Well, lately they've done a 3.5x. That's pretty good since beginning of October. Currently, they're trying to beat that 66 cents level. Well, they didn't quite hit 66.6 cents. Yeah. Oh, actually, if you round up, they did. All right, so you heard it here first. Pirate Chain hit the 666 number. Obviously, That is the mark of the beast, and so shouldn't own any pirate chain as a result. Just kidding, guys. Jeez, take a joke. Bad joke. Just dumb boomer jokes over here. That's all I got for you. Cubic is having problems. Remember, we said last week that it did not look good. They weren't looking good. They could salvage it, but now at this point, a Cubic attack is over, guys. Like, I won't say that's the final word. It's not the final answer, but the Cubic attack is more likely than not over. Pivot to Zcash as the distraction thingy. So we said, here's what to expect. If it breaks down, at some point it'll touch the underside of these lines and then it'll break down again. So that's just how these patterns work. You could short Cubic actually. If Cubic somewhere around this bottom orange band, so that would be 0.1146 times 10 to the negative 5. I don't know how many zeros. I guess that's 5 zeros and then some ones. I don't know, guys. If you're really interested in shorting Cubic, you'll have to come back and just eyeball scrutinize these charts to get these levels. If I was shorting Cubic, I would probably put my first entry here and my second entry here. I'm not saying that you should short Cubic, but wouldn't it be funny if some people did and got paid off doing it? I don't know. Again, shorting is dangerous when you're talking about dealing with the cabal. They have extra money. They can wipe out the shorts, even if the chart patterns say that's not the next thing that should happen, quote unquote should. Yeah, just be careful shorting, guys, because it's a necessary thing for bull markets to continue, but you don't want to be the necessary thing. You don't want to be that liquidity. Okay, MoneroTopia had a little bit of a pullback here this week, actually. Really for the past couple weeks. So again, like we said, this actually might be a reasonable spot to pick up some Tari. This is looking like stabilization. Probably, maybe there needs to be another revisit down, another 10 or 20%. Let's do a measurement here. It wouldn't surprise me if 40%. Wow, Jesus. All right, at this point, you just buy it and hold it and say, if I lose it, if it goes to zero, whatever. Like that's how you play these new coins. And that's, throw $1,000 on it and be like, if I lose it, I don't care. Or maybe that level is $100 for you. Maybe it's 10,000. Maybe some of you have a milli to throw around. You just throw a milli on MoneroTopia. If you did, that would pump the price actually. All right, so that looks like privacy coins for today. Let's go to crypto in general. Crypto in general, just having problems. Like we said, it just doesn't this is a bull market for ants, guys. This doesn't feel right. Now, if it's going to be extended, all right, we could tolerate this. If the bull market is going to extend into next year, maybe another 12 months, for as long as the macro holds up, then we could say, all right, fine, whatever. We can tolerate a return to 92, 91,000. In light of the stock market, that doesn't feel good. In the sense that the stock market had a nice big pump. Yeah, I know it fell this week. Whatever we had. How much did it go down? -3%, but then ended -2.3%. But I mean, that's still just flat from where it was a month ago. Like this is very normal stock action. This is actually very, very good action. So if the stock market continues up next week, that sets a nice floor that makes the channel believable. If the stock market rebounds here to the top side, that looks really nice. Now we got to come back to the Trump tariffs. So the Trump tariffs are in question right now. They're actually finally being reviewed. We talked about this in April that they got struck down, but then the injunction relief happened, so the tariffs remained. And then the Supreme Court was like, we're going to hear the case in July. And then I don't know, for whatever reason, it wasn't until November. So now they're hearing the case. And I don't know, supposedly they were grilling the Trump lawyers, the tariff lawyers about, the tariffs bad, unconstitutional, something, whatever. I didn't read the transcript. Here's the point. If they rule that the tariffs are unconstitutional, or unconstitutional, then there's this question about, is the $1 trillion paid to the federal government in tariffs going to have to be repaid by the federal government, which is shut down, which I'm fine with them shutting down. I just wish they would shut down more of it. Currently, the only parts that they've left open are the worst, most horrible parts of that government. So, yeah, that's the biggest fuck you they can give to everyone. Fire the ATC, right, the air traffic controller, so that and then cancel flights. But yes, by all means, please continue creating a Gestapo with face masks that don't show badges. But anyways, besides all that, if the federal government has to repay $1 trillion, that's a lot of problems. That's inflation. They're going to have to print the money, obviously. Like, where are they going to get it from? So they'll have to print the money. That'll cause inflation. And like, what's that going to be like if the Trump tariffs get struck down? That could be good for the markets, but then there's the counterbalance of, well, now the government has to pay out all these tariffs, but at the same time, paying out $1 trillion to companies that paid taxes, that's like a tax refund. That's like Monopoly guy, like tax refund. He, if you've seen the, anyways, that's a massive, like, that's a boost for their balance sheet, right? So that kind of means stock market positive if the Trump tariff gets struck down, but it also kind of means like this uncertainty about the economy and like, when will those companies ever get that money? And is the government just going to stay shut down so that they don't have to pay out that $1 trillion for as long as possible? I don't know, right? We're in like very, like, shit's not right, guys. Like the macro looks fine on paper here, but in terms of what's actually happening out there in the political realm, like, shit's weird, man. Like, this, we haven't done this before. Like, this is stuff that has never been done. And I know it's always never been done, like in 2008, but and the Rona, but shit's just weird, guys. I'm just going to tell you right now, things don't look normal. So anyways, back to Bitcoin. Where the fuck is this thing going to go? I'm going to say, listen, if the stock market is able to put on a floor, starting this week, then you're going to see a turnaround in Bitcoin. I feel like this is the kind of chart pattern that everyone is afraid of right now. And everyone is looking for that next move down to crash back to 90,000. I think everyone's feeling that. So it kind of, like, in a counter signal way, makes me feel, and especially again against the backdrop of the macro, kind of makes me feel like, hey, Bitcoin should see some kind of relief towards the upside if the rest of the stock market is playing along nicely. And that would also be somewhat a little bit congruent to the notion that the XMR BTC ratio might be a little bit overextended, on the short term. It's not to say it can't go higher. We might actually see another move XMR higher on the XMR BTC ratio. Very could well happen. But it's a strong, healthy signal would need a little bit of consolidation before going even higher, right? So maybe a little bit of a bounce, some consolidation, and then higher. In which case, again, that's like, because we're looking at the ratio of XMR to BTC, we would use that as a corroborating signal here to say, all right, maybe it's time for Bitcoin to go up a little bit. You would try and say, hey, these red lines here, they tend to act, especially the way that these red lines sort of appeared out of the ether, out of nowhere. Those red lines often act as a nice stopping point for pullbacks that aren't actually reversals, right? This is probably not a permanent reversal, into the bear market. This is just a pullback. So this would be actually a really nice spot for it. There's some like blue bands here also kind of clustered together or whatever, so overall, I would actually expect this wouldn't be a bad spot to get long to, if you're getting your paycheck or you got some profits because you're a Zcash believer, true believer, you could rotate that into some Bitcoin now. You could unencrypt your Bitcoin into just regular Bitcoin and then maybe make that trade. So let's see what else we got here. Z-scores, Monero is doing better than all the rest. Better than all the rest when you compare itself to its own history. That's what Z-scores do. Everything else kind of having problems here. Okay, whatever. Who cares? I don't see anything interesting except for the fact that Binance Coin was the most recent pumper. Okay. I guess CZ, he's out of prison now, so he can. And it's so funny. It's so funny when you talk about the fraud in crypto and people online will be like, what, you just some conspiracy theorists. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you think that Sam Bankman and CZ went to prison over a little whoopsie daisy? Like, Sam Bankman is in prison for 25 years and it's not like he was a cypherpunk doing fucking privacy, right? He was running a fraudulent exchange. Like, they're like, what do you mean there's fraud in crypto? Where's your proof? Like, please. Anyways, that's just a side note, kind of funny. Let's take a look at the macro and then we'll be in and out. So gold is probably going to start moving higher here soon. It's finding support. It's hard to see anything here on the daily, where gold is pumped so hard, kind of like Zcash, it's above its wave magic levels. Like, it's just not on the daily, at least. So we have to go to shorter time frames to look at it. And when we do, what we see is a little bit of stabilization here. It would be extremely weird for this thing to just be like, oh, I'm going to crash and burn now. Right. The next move is going to be to touch this upper standard deviation band here somewhere, like 4,100, maybe 4,200. We are going to be looking for that. And again, that's why I say, hey, it's going to take until next year for this thing to really resolve one way or the other. Hopefully, we want to see it resolve towards the upside. If they got to print $1 trillion and they're still lowering rates, that would actually be pretty bullish for gold. So, but it's still, it's still probably going to take until next year for this thing to test that resistance, some falling volatility and then start to break out again and then start moving higher, right? So something like that. I don't know. Maybe it could happen by December, but just, like I said, don't expect massive gold gains here, but there should be a rebound. If you're a trader, you could buy some GLD and get in on a little bit of positive gold action and shoot for that. How many percentage would that be? About 4 to 5% higher. You could shoot for that and but don't get greedy there because that pattern is just going to need time to resolve. And that's like psychological, if nothing else. All right. Dollar index stable, slightly rising. Actually, this is starting to look a little bit like it might want to try to break out soon. This is not a problem yet. This is the kind of thing we would be looking well into next year, like maybe Q2, until like if this thing started moving up, we would start saying, hey, it could a rise in gold be signaling a time for a big pullback in the market? We're not there yet. Just giving you some future ideas. Oil hasn't done much. It's still kind of on the down, which is interesting. I would have expected the news with the Trump tariff trial looking somewhat mildly positive for getting rid of that tariff. You would think that oil should be happier about that, but it doesn't seem to be. So I haven't thought too much about that. Probably there's something I'm missing, right? Obviously, the markets are always right, and they're so rational and organic all the time. Anyways, reverse repos still zero. Yeah, nothing there. Nothing important happening in reverse repos. Silver. This chart always goes back to the monthly. I always think I save it, but I guess I don't. I don't know. Let's see. Silver versus gold continues to be about flat. So silver performing about the same level that gold is performing. Here we go. Here's a silver chart. Sorry, a little bit of slowdown here. This is bullish though. Silver beat its previous all-time high, and now it looks like it's going to be trying to set some kind of floor. This still does look like a lot of air to me, right? This chart has a lot of air below it. Maybe if we come down to a shorter time frame, we can find a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of a similar pattern to gold. If you think about it, right? Basically finding some stability here. You'd expect silver to try and shoot back for that $50-$51 area. As just like a natural, rebound, right? Up, down, up. We already looked at the stock market, nothing there. Curious what Shanghai is doing. Shanghai continues to be reasonably bullish. Expect Shanghai to get stopped out by this extremely long-term, 2 decades long trend line right here. I don't think anyone here is trading Shanghai, but China kind of matters, sort of. So, anyways, China has had a very. You'll notice that China, from their 2008 levels, they never actually recovered. They've just been in this like sideways chop since forever, despite all the Chinese money printing. So, like, that's pretty bad. That's terrible if you're a Chinese investor, long-term investor. All right, I guess that's enough. There's nothing else really here that matters that much that we need to look at. So, yeah, in general. So, just to sum it all up, don't short Zcash. Monero looking reasonably good. Hoping that Monero goes straight to 400 and then does some consolidation. Bitcoin, my guess is that we're actually finding this is probably a bottom, pretty close to a bottom, and stock markets also still looking nice, macro looking stable. So the next thing that we want to see on the stock markets is a rebound next week. Hopefully next week. We don't want to see it dawdle here more than a few days. We want to see next week closing strong, and that should lead to gains in the crypto system. So that's all I got for you guys.
All right, we do have some super chats, XMR
I
chats.
missed them.
Brown Eagle tipped 0.000123 XMR. Love you, buddy. Can I take a selfie with you at MoneroTopia? So
sure, man, absolutely.
XMR family tipped 0.1 XMR. Simple X token launch reminds me of Signal's mobile coin. Yes, I know it's different, but you were still trying to create a new payment. Get your free NFT from our website so you can use Simple X token. When I saw that, I thought, what the fuck is that? Yeah, we could ask that question to Simple X when we bring them up. Another one for Body, though. Anon tip 0.002 XMR. Hi, Body. Can you take a look at Litecoin? And do you think that Dogecoin's performance can beat LTC this cycle, since they are merge mines, so miners aren't as likely to hodl and limit the supply because it's just side gains to their Dogecoin mining business? Wow.
All right, let me
So I'm bringing up the Litecoin chart. Let me read that one more time.
Yeah, go for it.
Can Dogecoin's performance can cuck? Do you think that can cuck LTCs? So miners aren't likely to hodl and limit the supply side gains to the Dogecoin. Yeah, those are interesting dynamics. They are merge mined, and there is a question over which coin do they want to hold, if any. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be some pretty big selling pressure. I guess Litecoin is probably pretty far along in its emissions curve by this point. I mean, they launched in 2014, so I imagine they're pretty low. So it probably doesn't matter that much, but it really depends on how big the organic usage is. Let's start from the big picture. All right, so on the weekly, this isn't a terrible chart pattern, but it's difficult to look at this and then say, hey, your gains are, your Litecoin gains are coming, are on the way. Personally, I can't look at Litecoin or Dogecoin as being, maybe Dogecoin is a performer because of the meme coin aspects, but it's hard for me to look at Litecoin and think of it as like a strong performer in any like price sense. I've never looked at Litecoin as having great potential for the old glory days. It had its narrative. It was a good narrative, where the Diet Pepsi of Bitcoin back in, from 2014 to 2018. And they managed to sort of recoup the old glory days back in that crazy degen bull market we had 4 years ago. But is that going to happen again? Nah, man, the narrative just doesn't support it now. Like the narrative's shifted. Everything's different. Litecoin is a utility coin that you use to get into other coins, right? Its best use cases. Use Litecoin when Bitcoin fees suck. Use Litecoin to get into your other coins, right? So it's going to be hard to say that I see anything good there. Let's take a look at the ratio. So LTC USD divided by, actually, let's do Doge. Doge USD divided by LTC USD. And let's turn on the wave magic. In a lot of ways, I feel like almost lost in my chart sometimes without the wave magic. I can kind of see it without, in a lot of cases, I can see the general ideas without these lines turned on, but they really are nice reference points. It's kind of like pleb lines, like if you have a certain way of drawing pleb lines, understand that in a lot of ways, those pleb lines are just reference points for you. They help you identify stuff and features of the chart that you wouldn't otherwise normally, that wouldn't be so clear. And so in a way, the wave magic is a very similar kind of thing. It's, again, descriptive in a lot of ways, not prescriptive. So Dogecoin versus LTC, this actually looks strong for LTC, believe it or not. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I wouldn't say this looks strong, but this does. You would kind of expect Doge should have had more pump here. The last pump that it got was in the end of 2024, and then since then it hasn't really done a whole lot. Let's take a look at how much percentages this is ranging. So it's ranging 50 to 100%, right? So it's right now. I guess I would say I would. You know what I would do, man? If if I was you, I would try to match up these pumps here, and I would say, hey, how much do these pumps correlate with some kind of other activity in the market? Like, is Bitcoin positive during this time, right? Or are these total market cap increases during the pumps of Dogecoin? And that'll tell you what to do, because if that is the case, and I suspect it might be, then if we start seeing a resurgence in the bull market, right? Bitcoin starts heading back to the 125 area, you're going to see Dogecoin outperforming Litecoin. And if we get the degen spikes, the stupidness that we're all hoping for to get our gains, whatever, then you could expect Dogecoin to make some kind of pump here to the upside. But in general, I wouldn't look at this chart and necessarily have confidence that Dogecoin or Litecoin is going to outperform the other over long time frames. I guess you might slightly bias in favor of Doge. No, I couldn't say that. Yeah. So I would honestly, because they're merge mined together, maybe they're bonded together in kind of way, right? Like in a sort of like informal, they end up de facto bonded together in terms of their price behaviors, their price performance. So that's the long answer to your question. I don't really have a big opinion on it. I would need to probably stop and think about it some more. But hopefully that's some ideas for you.
Okay, yeah, you got another one over here. Elvin Thrust tipped 0.0011 XMR. Have you looked at quantum stocks?
He says, yeah, have you looked at quantum stops? We are Monero pros, but doesn't mean we can't make money outside to then bring back to the community. Ion Q, Rig TI, QBTS are some good examples. All right, let's quickly look at those. I'll tell you, yeah, it's a lot to look at. We won't go into crazy analysis mode on these. Let's okay, so this is a new one. It looks like 2021. This is a positive price chart right here. Like you would expect, this thing probably wants to continue making gains. Although if you looked at the RSI, I promise you the RSI is already that's a lower high on the RSI if you looked at that. So it probably has more pump to go, but you know, the next pump I would take my money and run on that one. It is not yet the time for just in a general sense, my thinking on it, it's not yet the time for quantum stocks. That will be the next thing that happens. They'll make some big breakthrough, whether it's a breakthrough or not, who knows, but they'll make some breakthrough, and that'll be like the next pumpage thing. Like there's the AI, that was this cycle. There's going to be the civil unrest, right? Maybe civil war, who knows, right? But the civil unrest is coming, and that'll be the reason for the next crash, whatever. Then they'll reinflate the bubble, and probably, I guess, maybe next will be quantum stocks. We'll have to, like, you know, we'll take it easy on that one. Maybe it's not quite right. Maybe there will have to be a round 2 first of the AI. But you know, at some point, quantum stocks will be the next bubble to inflate, and then it'll be time to really jump in on these stocks. You'll notice this guy crashed. Wow, 95%. QBTS crashed 95% 2023 before. Well, I mean, obviously it's made massive gains since then. That's 10,000%. Wow, you could be retired on that, or almost retired. This too is also a positive. This is currently bullish stock right here. This thing could continue going. So yeah, that would be my quantum ideas.